We're going to take the entity and attribute list that we created previously, and we are going to try to turn these into an ER diagram. I'm going to see if I can do this with a split screen. It makes my area over here kind of small, but we'll see how it goes. So I need an employee table. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I want to click on this, double click on it. And the name of this table is going to be employee. Our columns are going to be employee ID, and we're going to make that a number. It'll be the primary key, and it cannot be null. Let's tab down to the next one. We're going to do first name, and I'm not going to get too concerned about the size of this now. I'm just going to leave that with the default instead of changing it every time. So then we have a last name. We have job title. We have address. That'd be our street address. We have city. We have state. I'll make that 2-character for the 2-character abbreviation. And we have zip. We'll allow for 9-digit zip codes. We have work phone, and that would be 10 digits. We have home phone, also be 10 digits. And we have cell phone. Okay. Now let's go back up here, and we will require that the first name, last name, job title, and work phone be there. Whoops. Okay. And the other ones, we may have incomplete information, so we're not going to require those. So that takes care of our first entity. And then we have an employee sport. Well, that's going to be intersection table between the employee and the sport table. And I'm going to skip that. Let's do contact now. So I need to drag another table out there. Double click on that one. And this one's going to be called contact. Whoops. Let's try that again. So this is a contact at an opposing school. We're going to have contact ID. And that's going to be a surrogate key. So it's primary key, and it is not null. It's required. We need a first name. We need a last name. We need a job title. We need work phone. We need a school ID. And we will do, let's try 4-letter abbreviations for our schools. Okay. And I hit the enter key, which just gave me a line that I don't need here. So I'm going to right click on that last one, and I'm going to delete that. Then I need to go back up here and see which things are required. And first name and last name should be required. And got to have a school ID because that's going to be a link to another table. And I just clicked in the wrong row, didn't I? Let's delete that. And, you probably have the work phone, but I don't know if you'd have it at the time you created the record. We'll just leave that as well. Okay, and then we have, so that takes care of my contacts. But then we have, we need to relate contacts with sports and employees with sports. So let's get our sport table out there. So new table, and double click on it. This is going to be sport. It's going to be a sport ID. And this will be, we'll do a 4-character abbreviation for this one too. I don't need to get that list there. If that turns out not to be enough, we can change it later on once we start putting some data in there. Then we need travel squad size. And I just thought of something else. We probably need the sport name in there too if we're just going to abbreviate it with an ID. So one time I was thinking about using the name, and I decided to abbreviate it to an ID. So we'll still need a name. So you might have something like, you know, MBKT for men's basketball, but then you'd actually have it all spelled out down here. Okay. And then we have a travel squad size, and that's just going to be an integer. And I misspelled travel. Okay. This one we do not need. Delete it. So the sport ID, at the time you create the table, you should know what the sport name is as well. You may not know the travel squad size, so we'll leave that as optional for the time. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to relate the employee. One employee can have many sports, and a sport can be associated with many employees. Okay. Actually, not on this side would it be, because we're only going to have one person per sport. On this side, though, we're going to have a football coach from Northwestern, a football coach from Dordt, a football coach from Dakota Wesleyan, and so on. So this would be a many-to-many on this one. So let's do many-to-many here. And it's going to be the contact and the sport. Okay? So we get this intersection table, which is exactly what we had here. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we are going to create a many-to-many. And that'll just give us an intersection table between the employee ID and the sport ID. And we end up with something that looks like this. And we're a little bit crunched for space here, so it doesn't look all that good, but that's something that can be fixed later. We need an entity for schools. So let's create a new table out here. We'll call this school. And the school needs a school ID. And that's going to be a character. I don't need that. I'll just type it character 4. And that will be our primary key. It's required. And we need, for school, we need a school name. And we'll just do varchar. We'll do that 45 default, I think is the number, okay? And we need an address. We need a city, state, which will be 2 characters, and a zip. Did I call that zip other places, or did I call it zip code? I called it zip up above, so we'll call it zip here too. And that will be character 9. We need a distance to that school, and this will be an integer, and it will be the number of miles. Okay, I hit enter or tab there. I don't need that last one, so let's delete it. And let's see what's required here. We need at least a school name when we do this. The rest of it we can probably add in. But at creation time, we would at least need this. Okay. So there's my school table. And the school, let me see, I have a contact is associated with the school. Okay. So school has one contact, but a contact has one school, but a school can have many contacts. Okay, so we need a one-to-many here. And we're going to do from the school ID here to the school ID here. Okay, one-to-many. And the last thing we need is an event. So let's put one more table out there. I wonder if I can shrink this a little bit. No, I can't shrink it. Well, here I can. I can shrink it. Okay, so now I've got a little more room. So let's double click on this one. This is going to be an event. An event is composed of a school ID, so who we're playing, and that's going to be character 4, along with a sport ID, and that's going to be character 4, I think we said as well, and a date and a time. And then a location. And we'll do that's going to be text, so we'll just go with that default for the text. Now, all of these make up the primary key. The ID of the school, the ID of the sport, and the date. So primary key, and obviously primary keys cannot be null. And we are done with that now, but we need to establish some relationships here. So an event has one school, but a school can have many events. And then, okay, now we go from the many side. An event has one sport, but a sport can have many events. So we're going to click, actually, let's do school first. That's the one that's first here. School ID, and it does not add another field for us down there. And then do another one-to-many, and it is school ID and, I'm sorry, sport ID and sport ID. And I think I blew that, so let's try it again. So sport ID is on the many side and sport ID up here, and we get a one-to-many. Okay. And that is the ER diagram that we should end up with for these tables. Do one thing here. I'm going to edit school, and I'm going to change the ID here to school ID so it's consistent with what I called it other places. Then we're going to save this when we're done. And it is going out here, and we are going to call it ER Athletic Department Solution.